what does forgiveness mean to you?
Well, when someone does something like wrong, and then I guess you just forgive them and like let it go.
If you truly forgive someone and can let it go.
Forgiveness means forgive and forget.
To be able to see a person in the same light that you saw them before.
Accepting that, the person is owning up to their mistakes, did something wrong, and that believing in them and trusting them that they won't do the same thing again.
Everybody deserves a second chance.
I think everyone deserves a second chance, because not everyone's perfect, and people do wrong in life, so you should really forgive.
Do you believe forgiveness is essential to us as human beings?
I believe it is. You have to forgive people at some point in your life, or else you're just going to live like grumpy.
You got to learn to forgive each other.
I heard a saying called, an eye for an eye leaves everyone blind, and I think that's awesome.
You always know that God's going to forgive you.
Forgiveness to me is a big thing, because if you have the trust in somebody and you really do love them, you'll really forgive them for whatever they do. You need to look onto God and see what He really thinks about that.
The motivational speaker, Sherry Carter Scott, once said,
"Anger makes you smaller, while forgiveness forces you to grow beyond what you were."
Forgiveness is not always the option we first choose when resolving a conflict with friends or family.
Sometimes we like to hold on to that anger out of selfishness as a way to get back at those who've crossed us.
But going down this road only leads to more division and resentment that grows over time.
Does being a peacemaker depend on our ability to forgive others?
Forgiveness, a path to peace. That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Kristen.
And I'm Dylan.
And this is Realfaith TV.
The teens on the street all seem to think that forgiveness was essential to being human.
We'll talk to them a little later in the show, as well as meet our spotlight guest, Immaculèe Ilibagiza, author of the best-selling book, Left to Tell, Discovering God Amidst the Rwandan Holocaust.
She'll talk with us about how forgiveness has helped her as a survivor of the 1994 genocide in Rwanda.
But first, let's see what our studio guests have to say about this topic.
Good idea. They are Vince, Lauren, Gabby, Carly, John, and Chris.
Have you always been quick to forgive people, or are there, other ways you could have acted?
Usually if it's something small, I'm like, okay, I forgive you, it's all right. But if it's something a little bit deeper, it takes a little while longer to forgive them.
You look at other people's situation, why do they decide to do that, and why did it hurt so much? Being empathetic like that, sometimes it helps to forgive quicker.
There's a woman I know, and she didn't mean to hurt me, but she said some really offensive things because she wanted to help me out with some issues I had. Then she even revealed some of my personal issues to a whole group of people. And I think sometimes she tries to be funny, but it really hurt me inside, and I found it to forgive her, but it took a while. And just to know that an adult would do that, it hurt a lot.
My opinion on forgiveness is basically like John's. I think that little things are really easy to get over most of the time. Bigger things are kind of harder, and it takes more to get over it. I mean, it's harder, but you could truly forgive.
I think that when it comes to me forgiving people, I have to think of it as they don't understand where I'm coming from, or they don't understand my feelings at the time. I try and take it as they just don't know what they're doing. And that parallels to what Jesus said on the cross. They do not understand. And when I think of it that way, I take time to reflect and to pray to myself on how and why and when to forgive somebody.
On the world scene, differences between tribes and nations have led to bitter conflicts and deep-seated anger.
Ethnic and religious wars continue to rage throughout Africa and the Middle East, and countless numbers have lost their lives just for being different.
In the 1940s, Nazi Germany systematically murdered millions of Jews out of an irrational fear. We now know this as the Holocaust.
50 years later, in 1994, 1 million people would be slaughtered in the ethnic cleansing of Tutsi tribe by the Hutu militants in Rwanda, Africa.
Immaculèe, who was a college student, was marked for death, along with her family, by the militants because they were Tutsi.
She narrowly escaped the carnage by hiding in the small bathroom of a Hutu friend, along with 6 other women, for a total of 91 days.
During this time, her mother, her father, and 2 of her brothers were violently murdered by the Hutu militants.
Let's meet her now as she shares with us the role forgiveness played during her ordeal.
And how her story has inspired others to forgive and to free themselves of long-held anger.
And forgiveness to me is so essential. It is something that gave me so much freedom, especially when I was hiding in the bathroom, and it was It was so much hurt I was going through. Like, I used to feel like as though I was in hell. And all of a sudden, when I was able to think of these people who were killing us with love as creatures of God, I really felt so much peace and so much good feeling inside in my heart. I felt as though I have moved from hell and I'm in a paradise somewhere. And yet I was still in the bathroom. So for me, not only I experienced the goodness of the forgiveness, but when you think about forgiveness, it is something that gives you the freedom to live without fear. Fear of who you are going to meet, fear of who you hate. You are free to live fully. Like if anyone do something to you, you don't have to worry about, okay, this is my next enemy. So forgiveness made me free. It means so much to me. It was the best gift I ever got. I would say that forgiving is really a gift. It is something that comes to you in a way that God wants it, especially when it comes from such a horrible experience, like people who have killed your own people, your mother, your father, your siblings, who have raped you, cut your hands. My writings, I'm hoping that they are going to help many survivors in Rwanda. And I have seen the response. I see many of them come to me and tell me, if you can go through that, if you can tell us to forgive after you have gone through it, we can listen to you. But no one else can tell us that. So I've seen already the impact it is making. And I'm so grateful to God to use me in that way, because it gives me a reason to live. And I know there's a reason to everything. There's a purpose to every pain. There's a lesson we can learn from every pain we go through. So I'm happy that not only my story is helping in my country, but it is helping across in the world.
Yeah, like Immaculée was saying, there's a reason for all the pain that we go through. When I have, when someone hurts me and I have to forgive them, I always just sit back and talk to God and say, what can I learn from this? It's really important to remember that God, He's always with us through this pain.
I agree. I do believe, honestly, that God only gave us this life because He knows we're strong enough to live it.
One time I had a friend, I was sleeping over her house one night, and it really was, I was too attached to my cell phone than spending time with her. So she really got offended by it. I didn't mean to hurt her feelings, but I still think she was unable to forgive me. And it's been probably about 11 months now, and it's kind of tough because we had such a good friendship. We did a lot of things together, but now we don't hang out and we don't even talk anymore. So lost something special because of a little mistake.
Yeah, me and my friends, we're kind of like the opposite. We're very relaxed and cool with each other. All we have to do is just be like, man, I really messed up. And on most occasions, they'll just be like, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it.
Going back to what Lauren was saying about how, there isn't that forgiveness there. I know that I've had an experience where a friend of mine just stopped talking to me. He's like, I don't want to be your friend anymore. And what I did was I had to take that experience and figure out, okay, this is the relationship I had. This is where it went wrong, so that I don't go back and make the same mistakes again.
Yeah, just recently I had an experience where I couldn't forgive someone, and it took a really hard thinking process and talking to God to get over it. This was someone who was my best friend, someone who was my friend for my whole entire life, and she told people false information about me that was basically could ruin my reputation. Adults could have found out and could have grown into something so much bigger than what she thought she was making out of it. She just thought, oh, I said something about her, I didn't really mean it, this is just a little thing, and it wasn't. This was something that was big, and it really had an effect on me, and it was hard to get over it, but I just forgave her, and I know that I can't become best friends with her again.
Forgiving people can definitely be hard, but we see with Immaculée's story that if she can forgive for something like that, we need to look at our lives and say, well, nothing that bad has occurred that we've had to forgive for, so we can definitely do it if she can, Jesus didn't come to earth with an army or weapons.
He taught about love and forgiveness, not anger or revenge.
But there were people who were afraid of his new things that he taught and afraid of his popularity.
Out of fear, they put him to death, and as he hung on the cross, broken and suffering, he called out to God, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
With this, Jesus gave us a powerful prayer. He also gave us an equally powerful example.
When have you been able to forgive someone after they had hurt you?
That's what we ask the teens on the street.
Let's check it out.
I know I do some wrong things every day in life that, you don't really realize. So there has been times when a friend has said something behind your back, or something happened at a party that you heard about, and somebody was cheated on your boyfriend.
I've been hurt by my friends' decisions or their attempts to make me make the wrong decisions, but I have forgiven them.
There's actually a girl standing over there that got with this boy that I really, 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 truly liked. And I forgave her.
My ex-boyfriend, and he hurt me really bad because he told everyone this really bad secret, like the whole school found out. And I learned to let go because there's nothing I can do about it.
I was just actually hurt by my ex-boyfriend of 2 years. He broke up with me, and he's going through a really rough time, just doesn't know what he wants. And I have no choice but to forgive him because I love him and I want to be friends with him. And I know that he never meant to hurt me.
I have a friend, he's always making fun of me. He's always teasing me and stuff, And it hurts, but I know he's just joking around. And then, he asked me the other day, he's like, yo, why you so mad at me lately? I'm like, I don't know, man. You always poke fun at me and stuff. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know, it hurt you like that. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, all right, I forgive you. And now here he is. We're riding bikes up and down the boardwalk together today.
Me and my friend had a big fight, I guess, a couple years ago. It actually ended up with me hitting him, but he forgave me, I forgave him, and now we're still friends.
When my parents got divorced, it was a tough situation for me, my siblings. But eventually I was able to forgive my parents for putting us through that.
I don't hold grudges.
A couple times my brothers do, eat my food or whatever. You gotta forgive them or whoever. It's not worth giving up without forgiveness.
I know what he's saying. I get pretty mad when my brother touches my food.
Forgiveness can seem counterintuitive. We naturally want to protect ourselves and be understood and cared for.
But love, an act of self-giving, erases hate and fear.
Because when our enemy no longer breeds anger, he will no longer be the enemy.
Let's go back to our spotlight guest, Immaculèe, where she shares her experience of forgiving the killer of her mother and brother.
And how her act of love helped a Rwandan prison guard, himself a survivor, to free himself from the torment of hatred.
When I went to the prison to meet somebody who have killed my mom and my brother, and when I met him, I told him that I forgave him. You really realize that when you meet someone like that you are just on a different level. So when I looked at him, I knew what I felt in my heart, that, you know what, these people don't know what they did. I wish he can only change in his heart. I wish he can realize what he have done. I wish his heart can be touched by love and be able to apologize for what he did. So when I was there's this guy who was head of the jail and who turned to me and he said, how dare do you forgive a killer? So you love him, you don't care about your parents. And then I didn't say anything to him because I knew he was angry. He was also a survivor. I knew the anger I felt because I have been in that position before. And I left the office. A year later, he called me to meet me. He told me that after he saw how I forgave that killer, it was the first time he even knew that there was another way to react to what have happened to us. And from that time on, he never hurt the killers anymore. He wanted to teach them about life, about love. He told me he found forgiveness in his way to let go that anger. Because before he was telling himself that he will dedicate his life to hurt people who have killed his family. But this time, he knew that he cannot go to that level of becoming a killer like them. So he was able to move on. It was beautiful, to see somebody changing and feeling this great feeling of freedom. Forgiveness is really freedom. I remember one lady who really struck me a lot, actually in the way she forgave. And I knew God have touched her in that kind of way. They killed about 6 of her children. And after she met the killer who killed her children, she offered him forgiveness. And actually she offered him to be the one to take food for him in the prison. She told him, I used to cook for my children. Now I don't have anybody. Allow me at least to come to care for you. That was beyond me, for somebody to be able to do that.
Wow, I can't even imagine being put in a situation like that. But it shows us how being able to forgive is really an opportunity to free ourselves and to help the person who we're forgiving. So how about you guys? Have you ever felt liberated by forgiving someone or by being forgiven?
I have, because it's not as big of a thing as hers, but it just feels like you get a burden off your back, and there's a slight awkward tension when you go in a room with somebody you're angry with, and then it just feels so much better when it's done and over with.
You know, it's funny, I had a lot of tension with one of my friends. One time at a birthday party, I got up to give my friend a hug after she had opened my gift, and I went to go sit down back in my chair, and the girl, she pulled my chair out from behind me, and I fell on the floor right on my butt. And I was very upset. I overreacted like a lot, and there was a lot of tension. I didn't talk to her for a while because I was a little upset, but I felt better once I forgave her, so.
Listening to Immaculee's story, it's just a great role model about being able to forgive others. I mean, if she's able to forgive the person who killed her mother and her brother, how can we not act? You know, I look at even things now that I haven't been able to forgive people for, and I'm like, you know what? What they did to me is nothing compared to what this person did to her. So who am I to not forgive?
There was this time when someone really, really hurt, not me, but my sister, and just seeing someone treat her that way, it really, really bothered me, and I got really angry, actually, like more angry than her. And she was telling me, you know, just Kristen, forgive them, and I said, okay, you know, I will, but it took a really long time, and it was really hard for me. The forgiveness Jesus taught was quite revolutionary for his time.
It's just as counterculture today, where every other popular TV show or movie advises that holding grudges, getting even, or taking revenge are healthy ways to cope with being wronged.
But in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus says to us, if you forgive others their failings, your heavenly Father will forgive you yours.
He's telling us that forgiveness is a mutual act. It doesn't come about by simply waiting for someone to say they're sorry.
God is calling for us to be willing to begin the process.
Next, Immaculée shares with us why we need God in our lives to initiate forgiveness.
And how forgiveness is more about making a change within ourselves than it is about changing the other person.
Truly, many people, when you are in a moment of hurt and you hate that person who is hurting you and you feel like you have a good reason, no one can tell you that, yeah, forgive. How? How do I do it? I would just advise them, just take time to talk to God. Express your feelings, tell him how you hate that person, how you have a good reason to hate them, but also recognize the truth in your heart that you are feeling bad. Ask him to help you out to let go of that. You admit that you don't know how to do it. Admit that actually there is a little bit of a joy of holding to that anger, but realize that it is not good for you. Many people have read my book and shared their stories, how they were able to forgive people who have hurt them or they have been angry with in the past 50 years, 20 years, 10 years, 7 years. And somehow everyone come to me and say, for the first time in years, I feel peace. For the first time in years, I can breathe without having to carry that luggage of hating that person. As long as you are willing to forgive, God will show you a way to do it. And forgiving doesn't mean that you go and hug somebody who is hurting you or who have hurt you, because you never know if you have changed. It is what you do with you. It's not what you do with the other person. If they apologize, maybe then you can really hug and let it go. But if they don't apologize, maybe they still have that mind of hurting you. But forgiving is able to think of them with love, being able to send them blessings, but wish them to change. Pray for them that they would change. So my forgiving didn't stop there in the moment of forgiving the killers. It happens every single day. I'm tempted to hate. I am hurt just like everybody, many times, many experiences, but they don't keep me there. I know now that that is not the last option. I have to let it go and forgive again.
Yeah, what Immaculée was saying is so true. The person doesn't have to apologize for you to forgive them. You should just forgive them and pray for them regardless.
That's a good point. Something else Immaculée said also caught my attention when she talked about hate and hating people. And it reminds me of a quote from the movie American History X when they say hate is baggage. And I think that's so true, especially these days when we throw around the words hate and we don't even mean them. We have to remember how much weight that word really carries.
You know, going along with that, Immaculée is just such an inspiration, and I've read her book. And one thing that she truly emphasizes is that we need to pray for those who have hurt us and ask for blessings for them. I just find that so inspirational as to, like, you know, she's so countercultural like Jesus was in his time, of just pray for your enemies and do good for those who wrong you.
Something I also really admire about her is that You know, she said she talked to God and she expressed, you know, maybe there was hate about someone she didn't like. And I think that would be a great way to forgive someone, because after you kind of let your feelings out, you know, he sends you that peace because he understands what has happened to you and he wants you to be reconciled.
I find it like so amazing how she's just able to forgive and just, you know, make peace with what happened.
You know, going back to what Dylan was saying about hate, and I think today so many people use the word hate and they just throw it around when really there's absolutely no need for it. Just look at somebody like her. She faced somebody who killed the closest people to her. She forgave them, and I think every single one of us can learn from that and look up to her.
I do agree. I do believe that she is absolutely a beautiful person. That takes true courage and true self-understanding to be able to give forgiveness away like that, to give it to somebody who's done so much to you. That's beautiful. It brings me to a higher place in my heart.
By doing the act of forgiving, we become peacemakers.
We choose to no longer allow evil people to have a hold on our lives and on our hearts.
In the sacrament of reconciliation, we can find healing by not only asking for our own forgiveness, but by asking for the strength to forgive those who have hurt us.
Do you think forgiveness is a path to peace?
That's what we ask the teens on the street.
Let's take a look.
It's got to be in you to forgive, I feel like. I know some people just don't have it in them, but you got to find it.
Everybody needs to realize that just people make mistakes, you know, we're all human, we're bound to mess up here and there.
Don't stay angry, just, you know, let it go.
If you're really upset with someone, you should really think about it and really try and forgive somebody.
It's hard, but you have to dig down deep and just forgive someone.
I guess say, you know, what would Jesus do?
It's better to let things go rather than stay mad all the time, because staying mad takes a lot of work.
Do you believe forgiveness is the path to peace in our world?
No.
Definitely a way for peace in the world.
Nah, there's always going to be wars, there's always going to be conflicts.
Especially with the war right now, I think we should really learn how to have peace with people and forgive, because that's the biggest thing in life, is to have forgiveness.
If we could all learn to forgive, that would be something pretty awesome in the world, I think. Next, Immaculèe shares with us why she believes forgiveness can be a path towards peace.
And how the love of her family and their memory transcends their death.
I believe forgiveness is a path to peace in the world. So if really we are not equipped with forgiveness, we will end up hating everybody. Then our world will just go and fight at war forever. If you don't know that you are able to forgive if somebody hurts you, there will be no families, there will be no mother and husband and father together raising children. People will be just like giving back to each other. But anyone who lives, as long as you're still breathing, there's a chance to change. There's a chance to realize the wrong you have done. I'm just waiting for the day where I can meet somebody who was a killer and who can say, like, what did I do? How can I do that? That is the moment I pray for, when they realize the goodness of love, what they have done. When I remember my parents, all the things they worked for, the houses they were building, how many hours they spent on them, when I remember how they destroyed them in about 5 minutes, it didn't take them 2 minutes to burn one house, to burn the car. And then you wonder what really matters. The sleepless nights they spent when a neighbor was pregnant and needed somebody to take them to the hospital, and my dad had to wake up to drive them. The time they spent feeding people, the poor people in the village. The time my brother was giving to a poor person his clothes, those moments, they don't leave my heart. Those moments live forever. The moment we live, we love, we care for other people, they stay together. They stay forever in our hearts.
We can all learn from Immaculee's story. You know, it shows us that peace in this world is definitely a lot more achievable than we think.
Yeah, I do believe that peace can actually affect, you know, humanity like the domino effect. And I just think that it is key to making the world a better place.
Absolutely. It's like you think about, why don't we have peace in this world? And it's because we are fighting these wars, and these wars are usually started because people don't want to forgive one another. And if you aren't willing to forgive one another, then you can't achieve this happiness or the satisfaction of living in a peaceful world, like the world that God wanted us to live in.
You know, we don't have to start with peace and do this huge big thing like I'm going to go overseas and start peace there. No, we have to start with peace in our home and amongst our family and then work out from there. We have to start small and then it'll become something global.
I heard a quote one time that kind of refers back to that. It said, regret makes you old and bitterness poisons the people around you. And I think that kind of has the same type of effect because our bitterness and our inability to forgive people, that does spread, you know? But if we can forgive, that will spread too. And definitely I think if we can all do that, obviously that would be the first step towards peace.
We are all challenged to be peacemakers in ways large and small.
Jesus told us in the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall see God."
Consider that, in a sense, those who work for peace aren't waiting to see God.
They see him now in their work, in the people they care for, in the eyes of those whom they have saved from violence, and in their own hearts as they forgive one another.
This is one of the gifts we don't have to wait for. We can see God now.
And when we see God in everyone around us, in those who are different, in those who are lost or afraid, we can forgive the injustices and find real lasting peace.
Do you have a story where forgiveness led you to peace in your life?
We'd love to hear from you. Contact us through our website.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
Or you can call us at 609-406-7402.
And we'll leave you today with this final passage from Colossians chapter 3.
Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts.
Kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another and, if one has a complaint against another,
forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV. God bless.